Hey everyone, my name is Beattie and I'm the head of I18N at Just Eat. Put your hands up if you know what the head of I18N does. Okay. And put your hands up if you've ever heard of Just Eat. Okay, let me explain. So don't worry about it, my boss doesn't know what the head of I18N does either. I've got a big dev team in Kiev and I've got a small dev team in London, and we internationalize features, the main core features of the Just Eat platform for the 13 countries that we're in. But, and Just Eat is an online takeaway business that I'll explain a little bit more about later. Okay, well the majority of my career has been QA, and I've joined Just Eat as the guy responsible for quality. Really is like the product manager for quality. I've had a few job titles, but that's basically what I've been doing. And I've decided not to talk to you today about automation, because we've already heard loads of great stuff about automation, stuff that I would absolutely validate, and stuff that makes me feel a little bit happier about some of the decisions we've made over the last few years. Instead, I'm going to talk about the stuff around automation, the stuff that perhaps everybody said automation, and everybody said there's more to it than that, and I want to talk to you about that stuff. Okay. And to give you some context, when I joined Just Eat 3 years ago, we were doing one release every 3 months. That's all we could do. And now we do more than one release a day. So we've had to evolve very significantly as a QA function to accommodate that. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me and my background, tell you about Just Eat and who we are, and then I'm going to go on to why have things changed for QA, generally using my background, not specific to Just Eat. Briefly touch automation, and then tell you about the main bit, which are the improvements around automation that we've made, and then I'm going to talk to you about something that we haven't done yet, but I'd love to do because it's cool. Okay, so this is my background. If you look at these companies, you may recognize some of them. They're all big. They're sort of the Titanic-style classic companies that do very slow software releases. And then I moved down to these guys, and these guys, my job was to try and implement more agile processes. This was about 5 years ago. So I've been a dinosaur for quite a long time, and then I moved down to these guys and I tried to teach a couple of dinosaurs how to dance. And then I moved to these guys, and this really was the game changer for me. It's a very ambitious company, it's a startup. It's not really a startup anymore. Just Eat is a local takeaway online, so we're an aggregator like Amazon Marketplace for takeaway. So I'm hungry, I go on my web browser or my iPhone app, and I tell Just Eat where I am, and Just Eat says, okay, well, these takeaways deliver to you. I fancy a kebab tonight, so I order a kebab. I pay for it via Just Eat, and 35 minutes later the kebab arrives at my house. It's like magic. Yeah, we've got 36,000 restaurants in our network now, 13 countries, which is pretty significant growth from 7 when I joined. 7 million registered members, and $1 billion worth of pizzas ordered via our platform per year. And if you stacked those pizzas on top of each other, they would literally reach to the moon. Scientific fact. Okay, we've now got 1,000 employees, so we basically, in summary, we've grown. We've got 10 QAs dotted around the world, but at Just Eat, everyone is responsible for quality. And lots of people say it, and lots of people don't really mean it, but we really do mean it at Just Eat. So, how have things changed for QA engineers? Can anybody tell me what this is? Dadushka, the V model, that's right, it's the V model, and this is really where the QA engineer was born, I think. Back in the days where one release would take between 3 months and 2 years, we needed lots of people to do lots of checking because there was lots of risk and lots of change. So there's the V model. But things are very different now, guys, right? So at Just Eat, we work on 1 week sprints. That massively reduces the risk of failure. 300 lines of code versus 3 million lines of code obviously reduces the risk of failure. And if you're releasing every week, then what are we talking about if there is a failure? We release every day, right? So if there's a failure, we can fix it tomorrow. which has a huge impact on the QA engineer's role and the whole philosophy of what we have to do as QAs. So we've got a lower risk, we've got a reduced impact, and releases are fundamentally different. When we talk about automation, we don't just talk about automated testing, we talk about automated deployments, monitoring, alerting. We're even moving on to automated rollbacks based on metrics. So releases are fundamentally different, and that leads to a different philosophy, the kind of philosophy you might see at this guy. Does anybody know what the Facebook developer motto is? It's move fast and break things, okay? Which is a bit challenging if you're a QA engineer. How many QA engineers are employed by Facebook? 0, exactly. It's never going to work. I give it 6 months. And Netflix. Does anybody know what Netflix is? It's like a large streaming service for movies. Netflix's motto is freedom and responsibility, which is a million miles away from the remodel days where it was all about process and control and management and over-management, etc., etc., etc. And as QA engineers, I don't know about you guys, but I'm certainly very comfortable in the world where I've got my ass covered, basically. But I'm pretty sure there are no massively successful web companies who've got the motto, cover your own ass, do more documentation. It just doesn't work anymore. So I think for QAs, this generates a lot of thought and challenge. The mission has to change, right? We can't talk about documentation, lots of test cases. Look, we can prove that we're 95.2% through all our tests. We've got to trust ourselves more, and certainly in Just Eat's case, we don't really talk about it in terms of perfect quality. All we care about is the quality good enough, and how fast can we go, right? And I think that's really significant, and there are a couple of messages in there that really challenge us as a QA engineer. I'm calling someone. Oh, I thought that was you. Sorry. Hi, Mom. Okay. So, our attitude has to change. Does anybody know what one of these is? A dodo, exactly. Somebody actually did a presentation in there. I was looking through the window, and he's bloody dodo. Unbelievable. 2 dodos in a day. You! I'll zap you with a laser. So yeah, I mean, we've got to change, right? If we don't change, then we will just become dinosaurs, or worse still, dodos. So that was the conclusion we came to at Just Eat. Engineering is changing, we have to change with it. How are we going to change, guys? Well, the biggest advance in QA is clearly automation, right? All of the things that these guys have talked about today, it's about starting with no automated tests and then growing to 1,000 automated tests that take 8 hours, which is exactly what we did at Just Eat, and then reducing it back down to 100, 150, something you're comfortable with, something that gives you effective, fast feedback. And that's what we did. And I think it's about getting the balance. We want to give fast feedback to the developers on the things that are likely to break and the key functionality, but then we want to be able to think around that and complement it with all this stuff. So, is automation the silver bullet? No, that's right. So my conclusion on this is that we should start with automation, absolutely. Get our tests nice and reliable, make sure we don't kill any unicorns along the way, and then test the gaps. So apart from automation, how did Just Eat change? Well, there are a couple of themes that I want to talk to you about. First one is about making the process efficient. Asking yourself, where is the value in the process that I am doing, and where is the no value, and how do I eliminate that? Exploratory testing the gaps that automation doesn't do in the most efficient way. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about crowds and users. Users are technically crowds, but I split them differently. So being efficient. So when I used to work at a large outsourcer whose name will remain in my head, these were the documents that I had to produce, this is sort of 10 years ago, in order to be able to sign off a release that would typically last for anything between 6 months and 2 years. I produce a test strategy. The test strategy would tell us generally how we're going to test this project. For each level of the V model, I would need a test approach. I would need a test plan that basically took the test approach that everyone had agreed to and implemented it in a separate document that took several days to write. I would create entry and exit criteria, I would create test cases, a test execution matrix, and then I would make sure that all of my test evidence was in place. And for every one of these documents, we go through a laborious sign-off process. Everyone would read it, someone would have a question. It would typically be a detailed question on iClever, not a value-adding question. And then we would change it and we'd go through document control and we'd send it around to everyone again. The reason I believe that we did this was because we were being billed out of £1,000 a day, right? So there is every incentive in that kind of environment to do as much work and be as thorough as you possibly can get away with, right? But where's the real value in this? Well, I think there's value in a test approach. I think generally we need a test approach / test strategy, and I think there's value in the exit criteria, and we need to know what we're talking about. But things like test evidence, I mean, we just have to trust people, is my view. And one of the drawbacks, not only is it about the amount of time it takes to do all of these things, it's about, when people are reviewing a Word document and they've only got half an hour to do it, are they really reviewing it? Are they really adding any value to it? Or are they ticking a box because they have to? That's what they're doing, they're ticking a box because they have to. So there's some value in this, but not an awful lot. And this is what we do at Just Eat Now. At the start of a sprint, we all get together. That's everybody, the developers, the tech lead, and the QAs, and maybe, if it's interesting, developers from other teams that might be touching similar components at a similar time. And we talk about what we're trying to achieve, and we talk about how we're going to achieve it. And typically this will be led by a QA, it's a whiteboard, it's writing things down. What are the hot spots? What are the areas we really need to focus on? Where are we going to concentrate our automated test coverage? Which tests that we don't normally run are we going to execute? And on top of that, we've got a load of developers who are engaged because it's only a 30-minute thing around the whiteboard and they're all coming up with ideas. And we're striking things out that we don't need to do, we're adding things that we hadn't thought of. And what we come up with, I believe, is a much more effective way of just knowing where the hotspots are, right? These are the things that we're really worried about. These are the risky areas that we need to cover. And then what do? We get our iPhone out. Hopefully we haven't been phoning somebody for 10 minutes. We take a photo of the whiteboard and we stick it in the wiki, and that's our documentation, and everybody agrees to it, and we just move on. Better content comes from collaboration. One person writing it and then sending it out to lots of people is not as effective as everybody just talking. There's the conclusion. Okay, so now we've got an efficient process. We have to start thinking about exploratory testing. Now, as we talked about before, we've got test automation. We haven't got 1,000 tests anymore. We've got about 100 tests because that's effective. Quick feedback. The QAs need to worry about testing the gaps. Now, put your hands up if you do exploratory testing here as a matter of course. Great, okay, that's good. One of the things that I noticed with our team when we started doing exploratory testing, you may or may not be familiar with this, certainly my experience is we had our JIRA that said exploratory testing in this area, and what would happen is the JIRA would get raised and then closed within about half an hour. And I'd say to the QA, have you done your exploratory testing? And they'd say, yes, Jim. Were we really busy on the sprint? Yes, Jim. Did you really spend a lot of time doing exploratory testing? Yes, Jim. Give me the URL? No, Jim. That's pretty much how it went. And what we were finding was people were using it as a box-ticking exercise, like executing any other test. And that's really, really wrong when you're talking about exploratory testing. Once we've done the whiteboard, once we know where the hotspots are, what we try to do is encourage guys to really think about quality. We're putting our name to this, we're trusting you with the quality, but we expect in return that you will give it your full attention and do a great job of exploratory testing. And the ways that we tried to encourage this, because it wasn't happening automatically, was to get the QAs to celebrate it using show and tells. That was the first thing. So come and tell us what you've done to try and break it. Show us how wacky you are, show us what edge cases you thought of, and give us some confidence that it really does work. And then in order to really embed it, we had a number of different feature teams, and what we said was, let's try and break each other's stuff at the end. So once I've finished my exploratory testing and I've said, look guys, it's completely done, it's ready to release, if you know that your colleague who you're fighting for a promotion with is going to try and break it as well, then that just increases the level of competition in a fun way, right? Not in a critical way, not in a negative way. But we just if you can break my software at the end of the week on a Friday, I will buy you a beer. It was basically how it went, and we had some fun with it, and that was the prize. It was an alcoholic prize. I'm sure you Ukrainians will like alcoholic prizes. I've been out with you a few times, and that seems to be the way the nights go. But we have fun with it, and it turns into a fun and engaging process rather than a negative one where we're doing documentation or where we're not really concentrating on it. Conclusion, we are more creative than robots, but we kind of have to prove the value of exploratory testing. It's really frustrating for me when things go through the net on exploratory testing because we haven't done it. So we've got to try really hard. And it all comes back to this sort of Netflix philosophy for me, the freedom and responsibility. You are taking responsibility for a platform that is processing 100,000 orders a day. Please take it seriously. So we've done our exploratory testing. Let's move on to an alpha phase. The Just Eat Bug Bash. Whenever we do a significant release of an app, not every time, but a significant release of a new app or a significant new feature on the website, what do? We get social. We get everybody together one lunchtime, we get lots of pizza, and we say, the deal is, you come, you grab a slice of pizza, you grab an iPhone, and you either make an order or a test order, or you try and break it, and you give us some feedback. So in return for as many slices of pizza as you can eat, we will give, you will give us your feedback on the app. And we do it probably once a month. We don't have any documentation except for the feedback form. Everybody's welcome, and we get the CEO, and we get the sort of junior copywriters, and the legal team, and that just turns it into a good vibe. And this is the key, right? We get great results every time. We have never done a bug bash where we haven't found something really interesting as a result of doing it. And how much does that much pizza times 10 cost? It costs, if that's how much a bug costs, then it's actually great value for money. More people find more bugs, and you get free pizza, right? You will be a hero if you implement bug bashes with pizza or sliced fat and vodka or whatever it happens to be. Exploratory testing and alpha channels really work for us. Taking that to the next level, put your hands up if you've experimented with crowdsourcing. 1, 2, 3. 3 of us have. So crowdsourcing as a model is kind of like outsourcing taken to its natural conclusion. You've got the internet. The internet is a great enabler of things, and it allows thousands and thousands of people to be notified when there's a new release to be tested. And it's completely up to you whether you choose to test the release or not. And we'll pay you for every bug you raise. That's basically what crowdsourcing is. The company we use is called Bugfinders, bugfinders.net. And we pay them per bug, and we pay them not very much money, about $20. And every bug that comes back has been validated by someone else. So they raise a bug, we've given them a URL, we may have given them a spec, or we may have just given them a URL and said go for it, and they give us their feedback. It's fantastic. Great value, great test coverage. If you ask our QA engineers what they think of crowdsourcing, the first thing they will say is, oh, I don't trust it. How do I know how good the testers are? Well, of course we don't. But we do know that all of the bugs have been checked by a senior tester. Oh, how do we know that the correct pizzerias are coming back for Manchester? We don't, but that's what we've got test automation for. It's not about perfect coverage, it's about testing around the areas that automation doesn't do in the most effective way. And you know, we can turn around a test cycle with this, where we found 60 bugs in 3 days. You know, it's incredibly fast, because it's massively distributed. Ooh, I don't know which browsers have been covered. You're absolutely right, we don't know which browsers have been covered unless we look in the IIS logs and we provide a special URL for them. They're all problems. There is no silver bullet with any of this stuff, but the thing is, most problems, if you care about them and you want to solve them, have solutions, and they're effective solutions. The thing that is a bit of a nuisance is low-value bugs. You get a lot of people saying, oh, I can make $5 by pointing out something that's really trivial. But they, you know, nothing's perfect. We've got great coverage, great feedback, and we've had really good, thorough, good quality bugs coming out of crowdsourcing. So I think this is the conclusion. All of our QAs have always been resistant to crowdsourcing, but they really are your friends. Alpha channels, using the team for a few slices of pizza, or formally doing it with an external agency, it helps. Help the crowds, work with the crowds to improve the quality of your product. What comes after alpha? All right. So just see, we currently host our infrastructure on AWS, and that allows us to be pretty fast and pretty flexible with our releases. So let's assume we have 15 web servers in the UK, that's about right. Every time we want to do a release, in order to get the release out more quickly, we push it to 2 web servers instead of the 15. And we run it over a weekend. And we have KPIs that we monitor to make sure that our release is working effectively. And those KPIs are a combination of technical KPIs, how much memory is this web server using compared to the average, how much processor power, and you know, what's the latency. And then there are also business KPIs, right? What percentage of people landing on this web server are ordering? If it drops significantly, then we know that there's a problem, right? Our users are telling us there's a problem, and we do something about it, we roll it back. But that allows us to go quicker, right? And it's, I'll be honest, this is the thing that I hated the most in my time at QA. But I'm putting my name to this, and we're pushing it out, and we haven't properly tested it. But you know what? Nothing bad happened. Yeah, I've got to put my hands up and say I was really concerned about pushing stuff out that was less well tested. But nothing bad happened to us at Just Eat, and look, I'm still alive. So we measure the server stats. We also collect feedback, and feedback's quite interesting as well. So I'm not going to need all that time actually. We've got a feedback form on every page of the website. Okay, so anytime a user's got a problem, they can click a button and they can tell us what the problem is. And that feedback's fantastic. We actually employ someone now, he's not a QA engineer, but we employ someone whose job it is to look at feedback. And we know when we're receiving the feedback, is this feedback related to one of our beta pages? Is it a bug? And we catch bugs using this stuff, and we can do something about them. And we can do something about them quicker and more effectively than if we were doing it just using manual QA, trying to make sure that everything is perfect. Does anybody use it?
How much feedback do you receive right now, and how much feedback, for instance, you received like a year ago?
A year ago we received 0 feedback because we hadn't implemented this. This is in the last year. Now we've got one guy and he's completely swamped. So I can't tell you the numbers, but I can tell you that one permanent full-time person cannot handle the amount of feedback we get in the UK. Just a bit of context, the UK for Just Eat is our biggest market, and it's about half the size of the entire business. And this only, what we've said up until this point is actually if we're happy with the feedback in the UK, we will assume that all of the localized versions of Just Eat are also the same. Now that's not true. We're beginning to realize this, so we're in the process of rolling this out across the rest of the world via the internationalization team. That's something the head of internationalization does. So yeah, we get a lot of feedback. Now it's not all bugs, there's a lot of other stuff too. But this is interesting. This tell us what you think of the page is something that we absolutely measure, and we absolutely want to know which are the pages that really piss off our customers. And we've got two actually. We're doing something about them. And then we've got some pages that our customers absolutely love, and they tell us in lots of different ways. The metrics that we talk about, the number of people that move from that page to the next one and the time it takes, but also honest feedback via these channels. Any more questions? No? Oh, hello.
I believe you said that now you have an application for iPhone or Android, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys push users to give you feedback from the mobile phones? Because I don't think you have these feedback pages all over there, right?
No, it's much worse than that. They've got the reviews in the App Store and the Google Play Store, which we have no control over and are publicly published. It's actually quite a paradigm shift. If you're not used to lots of public feedback on the apps, you can get some pretty bad feedback. So here's an interesting little aside about Just Eat. If you imagine what our business is, it's a very emotional business, yeah? If you go to Amazon and you buy a CD, and it turns up 24 hours later than it should have done, then that's okay, right? I'm still going to listen to my CD and I'm still going to be happy. Imagine if you've ordered a pizza because you're hungry, it's an hour late. It's 2 hours late. I'm giving it 1 star. This is rubbish. That's basically what happens. And it might not be our fault that the takeaway driver might have crashed his car or something, but the app still gets 1 star because the guy didn't get his food. So yeah, it's a very emotional business, and we have to be very careful about our feedback because of that.
So mostly you get the feedback from the reviews about users from apps, right?
Yeah, we've got product managers every single day reviewing the things, looking at the percentage change, how many stars have we got this week, oh, it's gone down by half a star, what's gone wrong.
Thanks.
Okay. So our conclusion on beta is that we did it and nothing bad happened, right? Despite all of my reservations, and this is interesting, we don't even label it a beta. This was the one thing I wanted from my heavy negotiating on this, is please can we at least label it a beta so that I don't have to embarrass myself in front of my tester friends. No, Jim, we're just going to do it. So a couple of conclusions from the heart then, guys. I know, because I've managed a team of testers, that a lot of the things that happen when you move from a sort of as-covering, lots of documentation, control environment to a freedom and trust environment are challenging. I know that when you outsource to a crowd your testing, or you push things to beta because it affected me personally, those are challenging concepts. And but the reality is that we're going to turn into dodos if we don't embrace all of these technical challenges in a couple of years. It's not just, it absolutely starts with automation, but we've still got a really valuable role to play. But we've got to embrace it. We've got to move quickly, and we've got to accept that releases happen every couple of days now. Yeah, and it's been difficult for our QAs, and in fact, we lost somebody just didn't emotionally connect to the new world. But no, it's good. It's good. Okay, what's next for QA? Let's talk about one brand new thing. We haven't implemented this, but it's so cool that I wanted to tell you about it. So, we know about test automation. We know all the benefits of test automation. It's repeatable, it's quick feedback, it's programmable, and it's triggered by a CI. So every time you do a commit, you get your feedback. Marvelous. But we also know that there's a space for the manual tester, right? Manual testers like you and me are intelligent, and we're not as brittle, we're not as prone to dodgy XPaths or indeterminate sleep cycles that kill unicorns. How about if we combine the two? This is how much I like this product. I've given it a custom animation. Has anybody heard of Rainforest? Great. Does anybody know who this guy is? Who is he? He's a mechanical Turk. So one of Amazon's products is a way of paying for small human interaction. I think they're called human interactions, but you pay for a very small human interaction, a very small amount of money. So it's not like pay per book, like a crowdsourcing model. It's pay per doing a little thing, which might be adding your email address to a web form and clicking submit. It could be something as simple as that. And what Rainforest is doing is it's saying, okay, well, if you were to take the concepts of test automation, you were to take the ability to have API-driven tests, and then you were to combine it with this mechanical Turk, what you'd come up with is CI-driven, massively distributed manual testing. Ooh. So, here's Jenkins. He's going to do something, and he needs to speak to some users. He needs a custom animation and Rainforest app. So, what happens is, Jenkins will fire off the command to Rainforest, and it'll say run test number 1. Rainforest will go and ask 2 different testers to put in a username this and password that into this web form and click submit. What was the result? Was it a pass or a fail? Come on, pass or a fail?
Pass.
It passed. What do you think the result was? Pass or fail? It failed. Great. We've got a conflict. So what happens when the QAs don't agree with each other? And this is what makes Rainforest quite reliable. If we ask 2 people, and if they don't agree, then we go and ask another 3 people, and then we take the majority vote of the 3 people. And if we take the majority vote of the 3 people, then we say, oh, we're taking the majority vote here because the first 2 people didn't agree. If, of course, you both said pass, then it is a pass, and it goes green. But we can massively distribute our tests now across real people that don't break when you move the password control above the username control. Automation meets outsourcing, guys. Is this the future? I don't know, because I haven't tried it, but I think it's really cool. And I would advise you to go and check this out as an interesting, cool new thing that we could try. So to recap, why have things changed for QAs? Because we've moved from the V model Dadushka all the way through to very quick release cycles and lots of automation. We've got to start with automation because that's very clearly the place to start. But then we have to start changing the way we work as QA engineers, to cut waste, to explore and to use groups. And finally, the future may be QA as a service, Rainforest app. I don't know, but I would hazard a guess that that would be what I'd be doing if I was still the guy responsible for QA at Just Eat. Okay, that's it. Has anybody got any questions?
Can you put software tested by this model to the spaceship production?
Would I put software tested by this model to a spaceship production? Not if my son was on the spaceship, no. If I was on the spaceship, probably not too. Let's go all the way back to what I said about, is it about perfect quality or is it about reducing risk? At the end of the day, right, we're delivering pizzas to people, and it is annoying if you don't get your pizza, but nobody dies, right? So the level of risk when nobody's going to die is significantly different to if it's a spaceship going to the moon. I wouldn't recommend this to Boeing, for example. I think that's probably a bit too risky. But you know, these things are all trade-offs, and they're complementary things. And you know, there is no black and white. It's all about your attitude to risk, and different businesses have different attitudes to risk. Certainly, if you look at the risks to Just Eat, it's about being able to move quickly and be able to overtake the competition by delivering great features. It's not about the rocket's going to fall out of the sky. But it's a good question.
So basically, this approach works for the project where really good quality doesn't matter, matters like good enough quality.
Well, good enough is what it is for everyone, I think, right? So good enough for a bank is different to good enough for a takeaway aggregator. Good enough for a takeaway aggregator is different to good enough for a multinational search company that just chucks out their software and lets the users give them feedback. they're really fast, aren't they? Google really pushed their new software to users, get feedback, amend it, and so on and so forth. So I think it just depends, doesn't it? It depends on what your attitude to risk is, and I think that's what we're all here for now. I don't think it's about perfect quality, it's about balancing the attitude to risk with the attitude of your organisation. Hey.
I have a question on Rainforest. Do you know if they have some integration with Jenkins, and
Yes.
in which form you specify tests for people?
They have their own format for supplying tests, and they have a lot of APIs. I mean, when I first did this presentation, it was in beta, or it was a limited beta, but now I think that they're going public, and the guy's, he's an English guy, he lives in Silicon Valley, and yeah, check him out and have a go. Hello.
You told us that you've been resisting some of those features from the start, and you found the true value. If there is like one feature that stands out and you would have put it like foremost, what would it be?
Okay, so I actually believe, my intellectual answer is great exploratory testing, but because of the things that happened when we implemented exploratory testing and it wasn't really bought into properly, I think that the bug bash has been the best thing, because it's actually really brought the company together, and everybody wants to get involved and everybody starts talking and it becomes a real social thing. So it's a lot of fun, and we've never had a bug bash. It's fun, it's really quick and simple to implement, and we've never had one that hasn't delivered great results, and I've never had a bad pizza from the pizzeria that we ordered the pizza from. And on that note, okay, thanks guys.